Welcome to a new episode of Manage to Retain, where I talk about issues around business for employees, your customers, recruiting, retention, productivity, and profitability. And I do it with my friends, Sherri and Lou. Listen in, you might get a few tips here on how to do leadership better in your business.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of Manage to Retain. My name is Vinay Raman. I'm the host of this podcast along with my friends, Sherri and Lou. Sherri and Lou, how are you all doing today?
Doing excellent, Vinay. How about yourself?
I'm doing good.
Good,
so for
good.
Those who, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
No, said good.
So those who haven't joined us before, and maybe those who have joined us before, the Manage to Retain, it's two companies here that we're talking about sort of an integration. Let me tell you about Carmo and why we're here. So Carmo is a company that takes and decodes human and organizational behaviors from data. We take the data and help leaders of companies run more efficient, more effective, more intentional organizations because they can see what's happening with their people or with their company. By seeing the data, by seeing these visualizations, by seeing some of these analytics, you can significantly shift how effective you become over time as you continue to investigate it. But there's also a soft side to it. It's not just about data all the time. It's this integration, a term that we've used before, seeing the leadership side of it. And that's why we have our friends, my friends, Sherri and Lou from the Lou Everett group. Sherri and Lou, you want to introduce real quick what you all do for leaders?
Yeah, and we're everybody's friends, so it's okay. Share, Vinay, you got to share us, okay? That's all there is to it. But no, so you're right. We integrate that piece of it, and so we take the data that Vinay and his company can do. We take that type of information, and we take the data that you have on where your people are currently, and if you don't have that data, well, we know where to go there. And so we grab that data, and now we can take that as the measuring tool. So we take that measuring tool and then identify where your people could fit into that measurement, how to develop them and get them to the point where that measurement fits so that you can accomplish your goal as a company and as a department by approaching the person, by approaching them, understanding what drives them, understanding what motivates them, showing different skills, you as a leader, understanding different principles to follow so that you can then lead them in a way that's going to drive them and drive results.
So I think I'd like to focus in on a topic today. And that's this idea of, for me as a leader, having run this company and many companies in the past, one of the challenges I think I've always had is this idea of how do I constantly improve my performance? And that in performance is not only for myself, but also for my team. How do I keep leveling up? And I'll give you an analogy because I used to play soccer and I used to run track when I was in high school and maybe not so well as I've gotten older here. But in order to level up my performance, running track, for example, at some point in time, it was just about revolutions, how fast I was getting my legs to turn over. That was good, but that's not necessarily, that's more about the velocity of my leg turnover, how fast my feet are hitting the ground. But that doesn't necessarily have to do with how far I'm going with each stride. That's a different area and focus. I've got to have both of them to be a really effective runner. But I can only focus on one at a time. I really can't do both because they're learning different. They're different sets of muscles almost.
Sure.
And I think that analogy applies here in terms of leveling up performance for my organization. I've got to constantly keep refreshing what set of muscles I'm working on as an organization. Does that resonate with what you all see in leveling up leaders?
Mm-hmm. Right, because you got to be ready for that next thing you got to work on. So you've got to do one, get ready, get prepped and equipped for the other. And moving forward, we always use this, and it sounds funny, but the reality is you cannot feed pizza to a newborn baby.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just can't. All right. And what's going to happen if you try to feed it? It's not going to go well. Don't try it at home.
That's right.
Okay? Just don't do that. It starts off with delicate milk, the breast milk, and then possibly going into formula, and then the baby food. And anyway, just graduate. And the reason is because the body's changing, the body's growing. Well, as people, and as we're leading other people, and us as people in general, our skill set is limited, and we're set, and we're at the limit of our own current growth. We can't go any further without development and movement and change. So we're only going to be as good as where we are now. And so we've got to understand that as we're working through and developing our people to get to where we are here. We realize, oh, we need these kinds of people to get us here. Okay, but you only have these kind of people. Well, then what do you do with those kind of people? Well, what do we got to do to develop them to get them to where we need to be? That's called succession planning. That's what that's called. And how do we do that is the question.
So as you all know, I love my data and my graphics, my visuals.
No.
What I want to share, that's a shock. For anybody who hasn't listened before, if you go back and look through the past 30, 38, 40 episodes of this, you'll see that this is kind of a trend for me. But what I'd like to bring or show up on screen here in a couple of moments is just this idea that I think we can build that into our organization by taking data and the metrics and analyzing some of that in our organization, but focusing on that, the revolutions per second or the length of each stride kind of thing. And the way we can do that is by creating campaigns. So I'd like to share my screen here and show you what one of those campaigns could look like and how this was created just directly from data that a company already has. Can you all see my screen here?
Sure can.
So what I'm showing you here is that this is actually 2 days old. This is from data 2 days ago. This is a time period that we're looking at for year to date, and we're doing it for a customer service representative, so a call center, customer support type representative. We'll call this person Chris. We just abbreviated the name to hide the rest of the identifying information. I want to show you two parts. Here on the left-hand side is a table where you see green flags. The person is doing very well, right? So you can see their average talk time is 3 minutes, which is what the top performer is. The bottom performers are doing a little over 4 minutes. You can see here red flags where they're not doing so well. So they've got a 78 versus the top performer doing 100 and bottom performers are at 78. So this person is doing well in green flag categories and doing not so well in red flag categories. Sherri and Lou, let's talk about this so the way I see this person doing things in this kind of runner analogy here, they're already doing these certain things with the green flags really well. This is the opportunity for them to work on maybe the lengthening that stride or that revolutions per second. That's that new frontier, that new capability that they can increase their level of performance. Is that the way you're thinking about this as well? And especially with all the experience that you have in and around call centers.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, what you're saying is absolutely right. There's obviously some room for improvement, right? And I call RFIs, room for improvements, and where we take a look at it. And in this case, as an example, we know the numbers now. Now we can see exactly where, although we might know where he was all along, but this is going to give a different indication because we might see it now visually. There's some, and Vinay, you can speak to this. There's a big difference between, okay, as a leader, when you're in a leader for quite some time, you can identify your high-level performers to your low-level, medium-level performers, even without numbers. You could just identify that, but that's not how we can run a business. Well, you can't really run a consistent long-term company or department by just going on that kind of a whim, because sometimes our spidey senses go wrong. Okay, we've got to have something very specific, and that's where this comes in. So in looking at this, the 78, as an example, a 78 actual score for NPS for Chris, or the 2.65 for the ticket response time. There's room for improvement, but there's even more to this. As we continue to see his improvement or change over time, we get to see, is he improving? Is he getting better? Is the skill set getting better? And what we're putting into action to get him better, is that working too? Okay, there's a lot of value behind this kind of data so that we can see where he's going to fit now and where he's going to fit later.
I think there are a lot of dimensions to what we can do out of this. I want to talk about the visual because I've always believed, and I think this is a truth, is that a picture's worth 1,000 words.
No, yeah.
If you look at this dark gray area sort of in the center here, that's how the average person is performing. And this blue area tells you how Chris in this case is performing. You can see that there are some areas, and the idea, just remember this, consider this when you're looking at this graph. The bigger the area of the graph of the blue, that means the better that employee is doing. So Chris, in this case, you can see is excelling in this category here of total talk time, right? Excelling in this tickets resolved category, excelling in this category of calls per day. But there's some other areas, such as this right here, which is ticket response time, which is not as good as some of the others in this group. So it now specifically tells them, hey, you know what? You're getting lots of revolutions per second as a runner, but your stride length, that's actually where you need to start to spend some time and attention. It actually gives them specific targeted focus so they can change their behavior to become a more effective runner, or in this case, a call center representative.
Yeah.
Giving people an insight into where they can improve, is that not isn't that an easy win for both sides?
It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Huge. As you said, it's like a picture's worth 1,000 words. I say a picture's worth a gallon of gas nowadays. And this is a whole tank we're seeing right now. And it's amazing because you look at the ticket response time. If you think about this, is in a very basic situation, sometimes we go too far above. We think as leaders, oh man, what is it? What is this problem? What is the issue? And we think so deep, and realistically, most likely, if he's taken longer to respond to a ticket or to resolve a ticket, maybe there's just a knowledge gap. And all we've got to do is kind of fill in a little gap there, a little piece. And when we've got all this others, that in the NPS score goes up because now people love them. And so it's there's a connection between all of this.
Well, the ticket response time is actually shorter than the top performer. So you're right. I think there may be a knowledge gap, or they're not being as complete as it could be, or follow through. They're just being too quick to respond and then get off.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to stop sharing for a second here. I'm going to stop sharing. But I think the point that I want to get to is this idea that being able to constantly give people a roadmap into their own success by building something like this campaign allows people to find their own path to greater success. And it takes some of that yoke or that burden off your shoulders as a leader and gives them the capability to be inquisitive, curious, so that they can figure out what they need to do in their running style to make themselves more effective.
Yeah.
And you all have 10 principles that you lead. Can you talk about those 10 principles and maybe which ones kind of apply here?
Absolutely, yeah. So we have, Sherri and I have developed, and our company now utilizes this in all of our interactions with our clients. Are the 10 principles that every leader must follow to lead with influence, and in order to really lead with an influence in a way that actually accomplishes results. Right? There's certain things that we really need to do, and again, sometimes we hear these things, and I want to make sure we understand this. That the listeners might listen, and this is, oh, I know this. Okay, maybe you've heard this before, but the question really isn't. It shouldn't be saying I know this or I've heard this. It's more about how well are you doing this. That's the question, right? Really, how well are you doing this, and can you become better? And the answer is always going to be yes, I can become better, and I'm not always doing this well. That's always going to be the case. So if you're a true leader, that's what you're going to answer. And so the 10 principles help us to define where those areas might be. And one of those areas is the equipping principle that fits right in here. To be able to equip those that we lead, in particular, this situation, Chris. Are we equipping Chris fully? There's a gap there somewhere, and we are always being graded by the results of our team, period. If Chris is not doing where we need him to be, then that is a reflection of leadership. That's just hands down what it is. We cannot deflect that blame. We cannot give the blame to him or somebody else. We are the reflection of who we lead, period. And so in this case, the equipping principle is just like that. Are we giving them all the tools necessary, including the time with us to fully equip them and provide them? So everyone needs someone to mentor them. Everyone needs a coach. Everyone needs some direction. No matter what field you're in, we have provided support in the manufacturing industry, as an example, where supposedly there's never time for anything. We can't take people off the floor to train them and teach them at all. But yet at the same time, you have a bucket full of problems, and you don't know how to solve those problems. But you're not taking the time to equip them well enough. You're not taking that effort and that time. So by doing those types of things, you begin to equip people. You're providing them what we call providing the bow and the arrow. When you go hunt, you need both. Don't just give them one tool, not the other tool. Give them the time and the resources that they need to develop themselves. And in this case, that's what we need to do for Chris.
I like that. We've got to equip people with the tools to do their job properly. So if you'd like to see a campaign like this built for your organization, that's exactly what we do. And I'd encourage you to reach out to me if something like this could help you raise the level of performance, whether it's your customer service representative, sales, marketing, operations staff. It makes it really easy once they start to have these dashboards like this. Campaigns like this can get up and running in very, very short time, inside of a week, inside of a couple of days. But if you want to have a campaign like this and you want to get your people to understand how to use it, and you want to be able to instruct your people and lead your people to use it so they can continue to level themselves up, I highly encourage you to reach out to Sherri and Lou, because Sherri and Lou, that's exactly what you do, right? Help leaders level themselves up to lead more effectively.
That's right. 100%.
Well, if this is your first time listening to us, thank you for listening in. Feel free to reach out to Sherri, Lou, or myself for more information, insights, or just to subscribe so you can find more of our talks like this. So thank you for listening in. But Sherri and Lou, as always, thank you for your time.
You bet.
You
Thank
bet.
you, Vinay.
Bye-bye.
Take care.